We've had this guest on several times before and love having her on. Betsey Lewis is an author, clairvoyant, and earth mysteries investigator. Betsey inherited the gift of prophecy from her mother. As a small child, she experienced the paranormal, receiving prophetic dreams of earth changes taking place worldwide now. After her second UFO encounter at the age of 7, she was given a message of utmost importance, but told she must forget it until her adult years. Betsey has investigated UFOs, cattle mutilations, angels, aliens, and other earth mysteries for the past 40-some years. She has also hosted the popular Rainbow Visions Network since 2009. Again, we've had her on many times, and it's always an honor to have her on. Let's get her on the line right now. Betsey, good evening. Welcome to AM 630 and Fringe Radio, my friend.
Hi, Pat. Great to be on your show again.
Well, thank you. You're like a regular.
I know.
And
I love it.
I know. We love having you here too. It's great.
Thank you.
You in these subjects, and I'm calling them fringy subjects. Well, they're not really fringy, but I mean, you never give up, Betsey. You just keep pounding away at it.
I do. I've got so much in my head, and I just can't get it out there fast enough. I just feel that I have to get it out there quickly, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, no. Well, and you know, for our listeners that haven't heard you before, haven't heard our other programs when you've been on, why don't you give us a little bit of the background? Give our listeners a little bit of your backstory about your life and things that have happened, and then we got 2 hours tonight. So we got a lot to cover, a lot to talk about, and get a lot of insight and get a lot of thoughts from you.
Okay, great. Well, when I was 8 months old, it started with my parents. They were attending the University of Moscow, Idaho, and they decided to take a trip. I was only 8 months old, and they put me in a little basket in the back seat. And the trip that they were going to take would be to Idaho, to see family. And it's an 8-hour drive, so they were going through this area. I don't know if you're familiar with the area.
No, I'm not.
Okay. It is mostly ranches. There's some mountainous area, valley, and they hadn't seen a car for miles. There was just nothing around that night. And suddenly they hear this roar. It just came out of nowhere. And their first thought was a plane was going to crash on them. It was so intense. It was shaking the whole car. And the next thing they knew, my father had pulled over to the side of the road, jumped out. Nothing. There was nothing in the sky, and the roar had stopped. Whatever it was gone, just like that. Well, that was the story they'd always told me for years, and until my uncle said in 1980, he says, "Did they tell you the story about their UFO encounter?" And I said, "Well, they heard this roar and didn't see anything." He says, "Yeah, but did they tell you that they couldn't account for 2 hours? That, you know, the whole family thought they were in a car accident, you and all of them. We hadn't heard from them." So that was my first, experience. Of course, I don't remember it. I was regressed, and so was my mother, my Ann Druffel, who is a renowned ufology researcher, and then my next event was...
who Ann, you mentioned, I'm sorry, she's related to you?
No, Ann Druffel used to be with MUFON in Los Angeles.
Right.
And when I was living in Los Angeles during the 80s, I had contacted her to do a regression on my mother.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, sorry, going a little too fast there. But yeah, she regressed us separately, and we told some interesting stories. Nothing that could really confirm that, we were abducted or anything. My story was a little bit more involved, but you have to wonder how much does an infant recall? They say we do. But then my next event was 7 years old. I was walking home from school. It was first grade. I remember it was a cloudy day, and, there was no one around on the street, which is really kind of weird because it was a busy street. And I felt something watching me. I just, how you get that feeling that you're being watched, and I sure did. And I looked up in the sky, and I saw this giant silver disc in the sky, And what's really interesting about it, it would seem to increase and decrease in size. And I was scared out of my mind because people were talking about flying saucers then. That was the big thing.
Right.
And so I would run and hide in a bush, and I finally went to a neighbor's home, and I didn't even know who this person was, and I'm knocking on the door frantically, and no one came to the door, and I opened the door. People then didn't lock doors,
right.
as you know. And I went in there, and I hid under the bed. I think I did. Or this might have been a screen memory. I don't know. And I was there for a while, then left and went home, and I told my mother about the event, what I saw in the sky. We both went outside. There was nothing there, and nothing was in the media about it. But I happened to find a lady that was in the neighborhood, and she said other children had seen the same thing. So I don't think I imagined it. It was pretty scary, but I've had other things, incredible things, spirit communications through the years, my spirit guides, my family members who have departed have contacted me. So I've just had some incredible things. I've had some near-death experiences. I shouldn't be here. I think my guardian angels, spirit guides, have run out of patience with me. They've saved me so many times.
No, I think they said Betsey's got a lot to say. We got to make sure she sticks around.
I guess. But, just incredible things have happened. And I know that, I've always known that there is something more to our planet, besides the physical world. There is other dimensions. And how I've known this, I don't know. Maybe my mother helped instill all these things because she believed in reincarnation. She believed in UFOs, and she really wanted me to enhance, these gifts that I had, too. She knew I was psychic, and we would practice our telepathic, experiments together, and we could actually communicate with each other.
And the thing is, did your family? I mean, now of course, I would say that at a very young age, your family, you had this encounter at 8 months. But with your family, I mean, were they accepting to talk about these subjects? I mean, that's the one thing that comes up so often and came up for so long. A lot of times kids, I've mentioned this several times, they talk about their imaginary friends,
right?
And so many people just stifle that and say, no.
Yeah.
There's, don't say that. People are going to think we're all weird or whatever. You don't have imaginary friends. You drank too much. You ate too much. Drank too much sugary Ovaltine or something. Right. I mean, but now people are becoming a little more open-minded. But there are families that were open to this even way back when.
I was lucky. My family was. My father believed in UFOs, but he didn't talk about it as much as my mom. She believed that even in the Bible, Ezekiel talks about ancient aliens coming down, and the description in the Bible is just so strange. It sounds exactly like a UFO and aliens.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people, Betsey, that believe that when Moses went on top of the mountain, that he didn't talk with God. He talked with, a light being. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the religious aspects of it because I know people can, I respect everyone's religious beliefs and religion and stuff. But I've heard that on more than one occasion that maybe he spoke with an extraterrestrial.
Right. That burning bush was actually a transmitter, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, and they had to use their vernacular because they didn't know what all these, modern things that we have now, our electronic devices and just amazing things that we have. So they did their best to describe it. So it was a burning bush.
Right.
Maybe it had all these lights on it and everything.
Well, maybe, but I mean and I think with the Bible. In a lot of books, they're all written based upon interpretation.
Right.
And some of these things back then maybe were, while they were thought to be godlike, maybe it was just something that was so out of the ordinary. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but that they tried. It was something that just could not be described with with things of that time period.
You know, I saw a program, I think it was like Ancient Aliens on History Channel, and they were talking about Noah having such strange eyes, glowing eyes and glowing skin, and his father didn't feel that that was his child because he didn't look anything like him. And so was Noah an alien? There is that theory.
Yeah. I haven't, I know it just came to Netflix. I haven't seen the new Russell Crowe version of Noah, but my understanding there is that that movie, it takes a little different turn. It talks more into the spiritual side of things than the actual event.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen it either. But
it's on
they say that, you know, archaeologists and geologists and all over the world say that there was a huge flood about 10,000 years ago, that there's evidence everywhere around the planet. So something was going on at that time.
Oh, for sure. So let's talk about you sent me a lot of great talking points, and we're gonna go through all these things. But
okay,
tell us about your latest book.
It's Earth Energy,
okay.
Return to Ancient Wisdom. And I've always had this connection to Earth, and I've always felt that the Earth is alive and has a consciousness. Mother Earth is alive. And I think that's something we've forgotten. And I've spent a lot of time with indigenous people. I've had two teachers during the 90s that were just amazing, and Corbin Harney and Ed McGaw. And they taught me many things about the Earth. And I think right now we are so disconnected, so out of balance. That's what's happening with the Earth right now. We're getting these mysterious booms that are heard all over the world. You know, some say they sound like horns and just all kinds of weird things. And there's theories that it's, you know, skyquakes. We're getting huge earthquakes all over the world since Nepal had that 7.8 earthquake last month. And there's just the weird weather. Everything seems out of kilter. Everything is just, you know, earthquakes where there's never been earthquakes. We're getting the swarm earthquakes in Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas.
Michigan just
yeah, right. Michigan had one. Arizona, Sedona has had a few in Idaho, northern Idaho, Chalice area is getting the swarm earthquakes up there. So there's something going on with our planet, and I think it's wobbling. I have this feeling this is just the beginning. We're just going to see a lot more earth changes going on. And, you know, what I want people to do is trust their intuition, because Mother Earth always warns us. You know, and so many people don't realize that. You know, you don't have to be psychic. But when you think about our ancestors had to survive out there, they had to trust their sixth sense to survive. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have TV. And they survived. You know, they had to do that. So here we are. We've forgotten, you know, our innate, you know, gift that we have to understand the Earth and realize that we are connected. Everything is connected. And that's how far we've gone from that connection. And that's what Earth Energy is about. It's about healing Mother Earth. It's about the legends and mythology of the elements, all the elements. It's about, I've added some things how each one of us can help with the Earth. You know, the Dalai Lama has a great saying. You know, so many people say, well, what can one person do? And you know, I just quote the Dalai Lama. He says, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. Right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So each of us can make a change. And I think what the indigenous elders around the world, the Maya, the Hopi, the 13 indigenous grandmothers, even my teachers have said that when we become more in balance, that we realize that everything is connected and everything has a consciousness, there's sentient beings, then the earth changes will lessen. and it's up to us. We're the ones with the power. You know, everything that we're doing, we're putting all these toxins in the earth. We're taking out the lifeblood of Mother. We're taking out the water. We're taking out the oil, the uranium, all the minerals out of the earth. You know, we're going to leave her with nothing. It's just insanity, and it breaks my heart what we're doing to the animals. You know, so many are becoming extinct now, and just the way we treat animals because they have an intelligence, and I believe they have souls too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. You know, these, you know, we've had Linda Moulton Howe on the program a couple times.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, these booms that people are hearing, what do you think that is, Betsey? What do you think these noises are? We've heard a few here. Not as of recent. Yeah, well, down in Provo area, and of course a couple of years ago, which I thought was pretty interesting. There was a couple that literally it was seismic activity, but there was a couple of shock waves. I guess that's all I could describe them that took place, and they had a representative from Hill Air Force Base get out and said that they were doing bombing runs out at Dugway. And it was due to the inversion that noise sounded like, you know, like booms and what have you, but it was nothing to worry about. What do you think these noises are? And another thing is these sinkholes that are opening up all over the place.
Yes, I was going to mention that. In Siberia, these huge sinkholes have just been popping up all over, and that theory is that because of the methane gas, you know. Now, people are going to say, well, there isn't anything to do with global warming, but I think it does. There's methane trapped, you know, underneath, you know, the Arctic, the, you know, Antarctic, the Siberia, and so this gas, you know, is being released, and it's actually exploding. Methane is highly combustible.
Right.
So I think that's part of it, but I think the mysterious sounds are inner core movement of the Earth. I think the Earth is getting ready to shift. I think that's part of what's going on, and these Earth changes are just going to continue. We've got volcanoes all over the world that are showing big activity right now, and it's going to continue. You know, I get earthquake premonitions. I get dizzy before big earthquakes. I just know when they're going to come, and I've had this. You know, I guess I don't know why I have this, but I do, and I think it's great that, you know, I do get this. You know, nothing I can do about it, but it's nice to be warned.
Well, the Nepal earthquake, I mean, the devastation that there is, some of those ancient structures they're destroyed. They were pulverized.
Right.
I can't imagine the magnitude of that earthquake, but just seeing some of the videos, it just... It was just unbelievable what a few minutes of shaking could do.
Have you ever been in a big earthquake, Pat?
Never, no. I know we had one here in Salt Lake, back in the 90s. I know on the news they said the epicenter was actually not too far from where I lived. And the only thing it was, matter of fact, it was a day that I was off of work, and I just remember I was in the kitchen making coffee in the late morning, and all the glasses and dishes started to rattle and shake and stuff like that. But it passed pretty quickly. That was the extent of my earthquake experience.
Well, I was in L.A. in 1971, in February, when the big one hit there, and I was getting ready to go to work for a brokerage firm in Beverly Hills, and for 3 nights in a row, I had dreamed of a big earthquake. And the morning that it actually hit at 6 o'clock in the morning, I didn't have that dream, but I was up earlier, and the whole building was shaking. It was going back and forth, and I was trying to open a door to get out. You know, you just can't do anything. You're totally helpless, and you hear the earth moaning. That's probably one of the strangest things to hear, and very frightening, too.
Well, I heard some of them, they get bad enough, they say you can't even walk or stand. It just takes you right off your feet. All you can do is drop to your knees and wait till it ends.
Yeah, and do a lot of praying.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But
you know, you were mentioning Dugway, and That's kind of interesting. I know you've had a lot of UFO activity out there, and all over the world. There's been an increase in UFO activity, and especially over the reservations. This has been going on Native American reservations, and the Maya, the Hopi. All these people have been in contact with ETs for maybe hundreds of years, so they are used to it. But I think it's kind of interesting. I remember when Dugway was shut down, a couple of years ago. Do you remember that?
I remember it was shut down. They were talking about because they're putting in new runways or what have you.
Well, it was actually a lockdown, they said, that they had something going on there. But there were UFOs seen about that time, and they think the UFOs caused the lockdown. Nobody could go in and no one could go out.
Interesting.
Interesting, I know. But I know you've had some crop circles down there, too. I lived down there for a while. I lived in Salt Lake, and I remember a couple of little crop circles that I think it was like Spanish Fork or somewhere in that area.
I kind of remember something being reported, but there's so many things that happen all over the place. But it seems like we're kind of in the Mecca hotspot here. Of course, we got Dugway, which some feel is if there's anything strange out there, there's more at Dugway than there ever was at Area 51, because it's just kind of the unknown place. It's becoming more known now, but we see a lot of strange things here.
Yeah, you do. What do you feel about that? Do you think it's extraterrestrials? What do you feel? Do you think there's portholes out there or something?
Well, of course. I mean, we've got Skinwalker Ranch, which
right.
we've had Ryan Burns on the program a couple times, who lives right down there in that Uinta Basin, and a lot of people down there see a lot of strange things. They see the beams of light. They see portals that open and close. As far as UFOs here in Salt Lake, what seems to be reported the most are giant orbs floating and being there for quite some time, right over the center of the valley. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, I try to keep my eyes peeled to the sky, but I haven't. I had a little, I want to call it an encounter, but I saw a UFO here back in '89 that I know was not, like I always say, if it was of this earth, we've got some amazing technology. I don't believe it was, but ever since '89, I haven't seen anything myself, but there's been a lot of reports. Matter of fact, last year, I think it was the highest number of reports here in many years.
Isn't that interesting that there are so many reports right now? A lot of people think that we're going to have a mass landing. I think that sometime in the near future we are going to see some amazing things, and maybe another Phoenix Lights incident, over a major city.
Yeah. Well, as I've often said, there's so many people. I'm not a skeptic, but I am skeptical. I don't like to be fooled, and I think most people don't want to be fooled. We want the truth. We want, and we talk about disclosure, and personally, I believe what Stephen Bassett and many people are doing is a great thing to build awareness. But I think the only way the average person who says, there's no such thing as flying saucers, they're just, they're Chinese lanterns, or they're this or that. I think we need to have that one event, whatever that may be, but that one event that just nobody can write it off. There's no explanations for it. Something that just the planet can see, and I believe it'll start to change. It won't happen overnight, but I think people in general will start to change and realize that, hey, there's a lot more to this than we see in our everyday day to life.
I think so too. There'll be the grand awakening out there. And what's really interesting, I've interviewed Dr. Artie Six-Killer Clark, who has interviewed hundreds of Native Americans, indigenous people here in the West, the Southwest. She's gone to the Yucatan and Belize, and they somehow have a connection. They believe that these ETs, or sky people as they call them, are actually their ancestors, and they've been in communication with them for thousands of years. And I guess because they're more understanding, they're more connected to nature and everything, that they're seeing these beings. But it sounds like there's a lot of different species of ETs that are visiting us, which is interesting. And some of these stories, will just blow your mind.
Oh, I know.
It did mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I had her on the show at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting to listen to, and she sure had a lot of things to say.
Oh, yeah. And now she's got 2 books out, Encounters with Star People and Sky People. But, the people that she's interviewed, I don't think they're making this up. And I just watched a series again in History Channel called Hangar One last night.
Oh, okay.
And they interviewed, people on the reservations that have told these incredible stories of cigar-shaped, football-long UFOs and the orb lights and that come in and form and then all of a sudden just blink out as if they went into another dimension. Amazing things.
Well, let me ask you, Betsey, why do you think, and it kind of historically, people now again, there's always 2 different approaches. A lot of people of Indian descent, they talk about, they have the hieroglyphics. I mean, over the years, different pictures have been drawn on rock formations that appear to be space-type ships or non-human, type figures. And that's all over the place. No one can dispute that. It's there.
Right.
And then, of course, you have some people that say, well, those people on the Indian reservations, all they do is drink all day. And, of course, they're going to see crazy things. But why do you believe that? Do you believe that these people are maybe because they're a little more, I don't know if you want to call it of the earth, maybe they're a little more open-minded. I don't know what's the right term I'm looking for, but what do you think? Do you think that they're more accepting to this, and people that are more accepting as a group, these visitors, whether they're I hate to call them aliens because I don't think we really know. People call them extraterrestrials, or are they time travelers? Are they us in the future? I don't know.
Well, I think there are a lot of species. Dimensional beings might be a good way to describe them, too. But I think they are more open to spirit communication. There's sweat lodges. I've been to sweat lodges, and you feel the spirits come in. They believe in the spirits. Their ancestors are there. They talk to the elements. The elements are all alive. So they believe that everything has a consciousness, and they are so in tune with this other world that we aren't. We've forgotten about that other world because we're so locked into the physical world. We've just forgotten about it. But they are still in tune with it, like you said, and I think you're absolutely right. That's why that they have that contact with them, and they see them more. And, of course, reservations. I mean, they are in remote areas. There was one story where it talked about black helicopters coming in, that this huge, again, cigar-shaped UFO was over this ranch, and suddenly black helicopters came in on the reservations, and they're not allowed to fly over reservations, and they're not allowed to land. The government cannot do that, or military. But there they were, flying over reservation land.
To see what was going on, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, everybody, welcome back to Fringe Radio. Our guest tonight is Betsey Lewis. Again, Betsey, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight.
Well, thank you, Pat. It's great to be on your show, always.
Well, we were talking about before the commercial break again about the about the helicopters over the black helicopters over the Indian reservations. You think they're just trying to snoop around and see what's going on?
I think our military is known for a long time, and I think in some instances they're working with certain divisions of beings out there, sky people or aliens or whatever you want to call them. I think we have many, many types of species visiting Earth. Some are just observing us. Some are watching what's going on right now with the Earth to see if we're going to clean up our mess out there, which we created with our planet, and if we're going to get our act together. I think that there's just many of them. Some have done experiments on us, abducted humans for different experiments. Some say that because we are destroying ourselves, they're creating a new race, and we are doing a great job of it, you have to admit.
Well, yeah, we are.
We are.
And I sometimes, I know the whole debate about global warming, and that can be kind of a big one, but taking that out of the equation, taking all of that out of the equation, still, at the end of the day, we're truly poisoning the planet. There's people. It's up. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, it's all levels. I mean, it's companies dumping waste. It's people dumping containers. They say that, and I haven't seen it firsthand, but they say the plastic garbage trail. There's out in the South Pacific. There's just hundreds of miles of garbage floating all over in the oceans. I think as humans we sometimes, it's just those type of things. We don't think twice. We figure out of sight, out of mind. But the garbage and the waste has got to go somewhere.
It's crazy what we're doing with plastic, because plastic, takes, hundreds of years to really break down.
Right.
It'll break down into smaller pieces. And guess what? Those fish out there in the ocean are eating that plastic, and then we eat the fish, and it's going right back into us.
Right.
It's a crazy cycle. And, look at Fukushima. We keep hearing about all these animals that, sea creatures that are dying, the sea stars that are melting along the coast, up and down the coast, the west coast, seals that are starving to death for some reason, sardines that have just vanished. There's something going on, and I think it has to do with Fukushima. And, of course, radiation, they say it could take thousands of years before it dissipates.
Yeah.
Maybe never. It's really sad what's happening to our planet, and when we think about what we're doing to ourselves, what we're doing to the earth, to the water. Look at our water, how polluted. Whoever would have thought that we'd be drinking purified water out of plastic bottles? When I was growing up, that would have been insane to think. It would have been ludicrous.
Well, even now, and even that, there's a lot of you're hearing more and more warnings. I mean, that's kind of the in thing, everybody drinking bottled water. But now we're hearing about these reports of if you put the case of bottled water in your car in the dead of summer, the plastics are actually letting a toxin off into the water. And
right.
It can hurt you,
Right. Plastic is, it has the positive and the negative. But I think there's more negative, though, with plastic when you think about it. I kind of encourage people, get back to glass as much as you can and recycle. I go to parks and I see people throwing their plastic all over the place. A lot of these big companies don't recycle plastic. And I try and get after them, and there's always some excuse that they can't recycle, It drives me crazy.
Yeah, well, and it's got to start with people too. I mean, it's a lot of people I think sit back and go, well, I'm not going to change things, but at the end of the day, a little here and a little there, it all helps.
Right, right. There's so much we can do. The plastic bags that we get at the grocery store, if you can get paper, or just bring your own bag, your own cloth bag for groceries. That is a big help. And try and get your stores to, even if it's, paper, and still that's cutting down trees. So I don't know how good that is either, because we're chopping down, we're clear cutting the rainforests and burning them, and trees, they are the ones that take in all the pollutants in our world and give off oxygen, like 260 pounds, I believe it is, a year. Each tree gives off that much.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we kind of think that it's just endless, and again, a lot of it's especially up in the Northwest, a lot of those. There's a lot of those forests that have just been over farmed.
Right.
There's that strategic farming where people, where they go in and they remove a lot of the dead stuff and allow the new trees to come up. But again, we just get a little too hung up on things and the physical wants and that. And of course, if there's physical wants and people will pay money, well, big business will continue to supply some way, somehow.
We've gotten so where we're kind of a throwaway society. We've got so much stuff, right?
Yeah.
We do. We have so many material things that I think we could do without. I wish we could go back to a more natural way of living. I don't see us ever reversing unless some cataclysmic thing happens to the planet, and we're forced to get away from all the electronic gadgets that we're stuck to all day long. We forget to look up in the sky and see what's going there. We forget what's around us, the trees, the flowers, the animals, the insects. They're all alive and so beautiful, and that's what the indigenous people teach, is to talk to these things, because they hear us. The trees hear us. They talk to the trees. The indigenous people, like the Sioux that do their Sundance, when they have to chop down a tree, they thank it. They do a ceremony before they do it, and they honor everything. I think if we got back to that gratitude again for all life, everything would change.
Well, and like you were mentioning when you were younger, growing up there, in Idaho, you were talking about how nobody locked the doors. People back then,
right.
When I was a young kid, we didn't lock the doors.
No.
People weren't. There weren't all these cars. There's always been. There's always has been, and there always will be an evil element where somebody feels that if they can get something for free or get one up on somebody, they will. But the simpler times, all these problems. I don't say that we need to. We don't. That going back to the old days is necessarily the answer. But again, back then, every family had one car, not 7.
Right.
It was a simpler time. Things were simpler. People were healthier in general. They were eating healthier. Now it's just it's a churn and burn kind of world.
Oh, Pat, you're so right. It is. The food that we eat now, that's why so many people are obese. I just can't believe what I see out there. People are eating all this toxic food. It has absolutely no vibrational value to it. Right. And everything is vibration in our world. And, the megahertz of this stuff, you might as well eat cardboard.
Yeah.
That's the nutritional value of some of this food that people are eating. The hamburgers, the French fries, I know they taste great, but, the truth is that, so much, and they're putting so much garbage in all the food that we get anyway. And then the GMOs, right, with our vegetables, and I don't know. I think we've just gone a little crazy out there. We've just forgotten how to really be humans again. I don't know where we're headed. That's why, I've written this book. I want people to start honoring our planet again, to honor themselves, because I think that's so important, to watch the type of food you eat, because what you're doing to yourself, you're doing to the earth. Mother Earth feels you. And I know that sounds crazy, but I believe that. And, I believe that what the indigenous people have known, they're right on.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you think about it, when you look at, again, and I think a lot of us are guilty of it, but we drink different things. You eat foods. You look at the ingredients list. I mean, take a bottle of Diet Pepsi and look what's inside of it.
Oh,
you
horrible. The sugar, the Splenda, the artificial sweeteners, the corn syrup in everything. Yeah, soy now is in everything. Everything.
Yeah.
And I really don't think soy is good, and probably most of that is GMO soy. So that's another thing there too.
Well, yeah, and especially like like aspartame. These companies, and again, I drink it. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but even though like a lot of the diet sodas, and I think a lot of people will sit back and laugh and agree, as horrible as they taste, you get addicted to them. It's like, that was horrible, but you know what? I'm going to have another.
Right.
I know that my wife, she loves Diet Mountain Dew. It's got glycanol in it. It's got stuff that they use for antifreeze.
Oh God!
But I believe a lot of this stuff it's addictive.
It is, and they want you to eat more of it. More salt, tons of sodium and everything, tons of it. Sugar, and of course, those are two addictive things. When they add that, they know that's what they're there to sell, and we buy it.
Yeah.
If we, when we start telling these companies that we don't want that anymore, that we're not going to take it anymore, they change. They do very quickly. They start getting letters, and people just stop buying their products. It's amazing what can happen when people come together and decide that they want to change the way things are run. We've got a voice, and we can change things.
But the thing that's sad, Betsey, is there's a lot that do want to change, but there's a lot there's a lot of uninformed people too.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I mean, it's really sad, but so many people are in this rut of getting up in the morning at 6 o'clock. They jump in the shower, they go sit in their car, depending on where they live. They may travel an hour in Well, you lived in California. You sit in your car for 2 hours to get to work. You go to work. You work all day. You come home 2 hours to get home. And at the end of the day, all you're doing is paying off your credit card interest. You got a couple new cars in the driveway that you're going to be paying for when they're rotted in the junkyard, and people just get in this rut and they don't see outside of it, and they don't look at some of these other options or some of these things that are happening to them.
Oh, you're so right. You are so right, Pat. There is a video, and I hope everybody will go and watch it. It's on YouTube, but I also have it on my website. Just go to my website, BetseyLewis.com. and click on my Earth News one, and it's called Dear Future Generations, Sorry. And it's by the rapper Prince E. He's only 26 years old, and it's the most, amazing video I've seen, because it really says, what are we leaving for future generations? What are we doing? It's up to us to change things. And it's really amazing. So I hope you'll all go to it and watch it, because he's amazing. And I think some of these new children, I know we hear about all these horrible things about children shooting each other and the drugs and everything else, but there are those new children out there. They're the old souls that are being reborn into this world right now, and they're changing things.
Yeah. Yeah, but unfortunately we're seeing so much of I think things are changing, but I think we're also, without trying to make this the negative Fringe radio show, but we're seeing a lot of downfalls of society. We're seeing a lot of things happening. We're seeing a lot of people abusing other people.
Yes.
And all the stuff that's going on. We're seeing, we're just seeing people literally. And I think I know there's two sides to every story. I fully understand that, but I think we're seeing a lot of humans just abusing other humans, and I don't know if it's for ego or if it's to vent. people abusing animals, something terrible. It's kind of a sad thing.
Maybe that's why we need some catastrophic event to awaken the whole planet. Mother Earth is going to do her thing, and maybe this new vibration, the indigenous people say we're going from the fourth world to the fifth world, so maybe that's what it will take.
Yeah, maybe. I think we need some sort of a shakeup, and not a I know some people talk about, well, we need that major financial shakeup. Well, maybe we need something a little bit more than that. Maybe we need we need to see that where everybody sees it. There's no doubt in anybody's mind what they've seen. To kind of correct us. And I don't know, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I would like to see it happen to put a few things back on course. I mean, I don't think life in general is terrible, but there's I think we're just going down kind of a bad path, and we need to really, really change. We need to kind of straighten our act up a little bit and be a little kinder to each other, and stop some of these games.